At a lavish gala in Houston, a socialite in a glittering dress, let's call her Victoria Sinclair, tapped the polished surface of a baby grand and mocked the janitor with a dismissive smile. "If anyone here can play this piano perfectly, I'll marry them tomorrow." Her words hung in the air like an insult. The elite laughed, glasses tinkled, the chandeliers sparkled, and the night felt secure in its luxury. But in the shadowed corner stood David Turner, a stoic black custodial worker who had scrubbed tables unnoticed all evening. Something flickered in his eyes, a quiet defiance. Without hesitation, he approached the piano. And when his fingers touched the keys, the laughter stopped. Every mocking glance turned to stunned silence. In that heartbeat, a room full of privilege realized they had underestimated him completely. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. But the question everyone left the Dallas ballroom asking was simple: who exactly was Marcus Hale? To the wealthy guests, he had always been invisible, a man in a janitor's uniform who swept their floors and cleared their plates. Yet that night, when Evelyn Lockhart mocked him with her careless challenge, something shifted. Why did she single him out with such arrogance? And how did her game backfire so spectacularly that her own reputation would be called into question? Within hours, shaky cell phone footage of Marcus at the piano spread across social media like wildfire, viewed by millions who could hardly believe their eyes. But the performance was only the beginning, because behind the thunderous applause and viral headlines, deeper questions remained. What happened after the music stopped, when the cameras turned away? And what truths about power, talent, and dignity would finally come to light? Evelyn Lockhart was 42 years old and lived in a world few could even imagine. Born into oil money, she had inherited not only a vast fortune, but also a reputation as one of Dallas's most powerful philanthropists. The media adored her. Glossy magazine spreads, televised interviews, headlines praising her as a benefactor of the arts. Her galas where legendary diamonds glittered under chandeliers, senators mingled with actors, and the guest list alone was a status symbol. But those who attended knew something else about Evelyn. Every event was a performance, not of generosity, but of dominance. Her charity balls were less about lifting others up and more about reminding everyone just how untouchable she truly was. No one dared to challenge her. No one dared to humiliate her. To humiliate Evelyn Lockhart was unthinkable. Or at least, that's what the city of Dallas believed. Marcus Hale lived in a world at the opposite end of that glittering spectrum. At 28, he pushed a mop through the halls of the Fairmont Rose Hotel where Evelyn often hosted her events. To most, Marcus was invisible, another uniform, another shadow blending into the background. Yet behind his quiet demeanor was a story no guest at those galas ever bothered to ask about. Raised in a working-class neighborhood on the south side of Dallas, Marcus had grown up with little more than determination. His mother, a factory worker who earned just enough to keep the lights on, once saved $50 to buy a chipped upright piano discarded by a local church. That piano sat in their small living room, its ivory keys yellowed, its wood cracked, but to Marcus it was treasure. With no lessons, no teacher, he taught himself to play by ear. Night after night he poured his heart into melodies only his mother ever heard. Two worlds. Evelyn Lockhart, the billionaire socialite who could bend the city's attention with a snap of her fingers. Marcus Hale, the janitor whose music had lived unseen, unheard, except within the walls of a tiny home. She had been untouchable. He had been invisible. But fate has a way of bringing opposites together at the most unexpected moments. And on that night in Dallas, beneath the glare of chandeliers and the weight of judgmental eyes, their stories collided. Neither Evelyn nor Marcus could have known it then, but the simple strike of a piano key would unravel reputations, ignite controversy, and force an entire city to confront what it truly valued. The night of the gala was supposed to be like all the others Evelyn Lockhart had hosted. Waiters moved like clockwork with champagne flutes, a string quartet played softly in the corner, and guests in tailored suits and jeweled gowns laughed at the smallest of her jokes. Evelyn, standing proudly near the grand piano, thrived on the spotlight. And that's when she made the remark that would echo far beyond the walls of the ballroom. With a smirk tugging at her lips, she tapped the glossy piano lid and said loudly enough for the crowd to hear, "If anyone in this room can play this piano flawlessly, I'll marry them tomorrow." It was intended as nothing more than a performance, a display of wit, a way to remind the powerful around her that she was untouchable. The crowd roared with laughter, some clinking their glasses, others whispering that no one could possibly take her words seriously. But someone did. At the far end of the room, broom in hand, Marcus Hale froze. He had not been invited to the laughter, not been included in the applause. Yet the piano, gleaming beneath the chandeliers, called to him like an old friend. He set his broom aside and walked slowly toward the instrument. At first, no one noticed. When they did, the laughter grew sharper. Some guests nudged one another, whispering cruel remarks. "Does he even know how to turn the thing on?" one man sneered. Evelyn raised her eyebrows, amused, as if daring him to embarrass himself in front of the elite of Dallas. But Marcus didn't flinch. His calloused hands hovered above the keys, steady, confident, unshaken by the ridicule. When the first notes rose from the piano, the crowd chuckled, expecting mistakes. Yet within moments, their smirks began to fade. The music was not hesitant, nor clumsy, nor amateur. It was rich, layered, haunting. Marcus's fingers glided across the keys with the kind of precision and soul that no conservatory could teach. The room grew still. Guests who had moments earlier mocked him now stood frozen, eyes wide, their laughter swallowed in silence. Whispers gave way to awe. A woman dropped her glass, the crystal shattering across marble floors, but no one turned their head. Every eye was fixed on Marcus. Evelyn's smirk faltered, replaced by something no one at that gala had ever seen on her face: uncertainty. The performance built like a storm, each note commanding the air, until the entire ballroom seemed to pulse with sound. And when the final chord thundered and then faded, the silence broke into an eruption. The entire ballroom, every senator, every mogul, every guest rose to their feet, applauding the janitor they had ignored for years. Evelyn Lockhart, who had meant to make a joke at his expense, now stood frozen in her own ballroom, outshone. But this was only the beginning, because someone had filmed it, and the world was about to find out. The instant Marcus Hale lifted his hands from the keys, the ballroom erupted into chaos. Applause thundered, but so did whispers. Some guests, too stunned to process what they had just heard, fumbled for their phones. Shaky footage was recorded from every corner, hands trembling as they captured the janitor who had silenced billionaires. Within minutes, clips were uploaded to Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. At first, the captions dripped with sarcasm. "The janitor's got jokes," one read. Another mocked Evelyn Lockhart directly. "Guess she's got a wedding tomorrow." But as more people watched, the tone began to shift. The laughter gave way to disbelief, and disbelief melted into admiration. Comments flooded in. "Who is this man? That's raw genius. Dallas better recognize." The once private humiliation of Evelyn Lockhart was now spreading beyond her carefully controlled circle. And the one man she had never intended to spotlight was becoming a sensation. By dawn, local media had seized the story. Headlines ran bold across websites. "Dallas janitor stuns billionaires at gala." News anchors replayed the grainy clips, marveling at the raw skill. Radio hosts debated the spectacle, callers weighed in, and hashtags bearing Marcus Hale's name climbed to the top of trending lists. But as the attention grew, so did the questions. Who was Marcus Hale? Where had he learned to play like that? And perhaps most uncomfortably for Dallas's elite, why had no one noticed him before? By the second day, national outlets had picked it up. Morning shows replayed the footage between segments on politics and sports. Talk show hosts cracked jokes about Evelyn's marriage offer, but some took a sharper angle, suggesting that her words were less a playful quip and more a public insult. For the first time in years, Evelyn Lockhart wasn't controlling the narrative. She was the narrative. Behind closed doors, Evelyn's pristine world was cracking. Her PR team scrambled, calling editors, drafting statements, trying to spin the incident as harmless entertainment. They floated rumors perhaps it had been a publicity stunt, a clever act designed to bring attention to music education. But the public wasn't convinced. Footage of Evelyn's smirk, the dismissive tilt of her chin, the cruel timing of her remark, these details told a story that no press release could erase. And the more her team tried to smooth it over, the louder the conversations became. Was she a gracious philanthropist who had been misunderstood? Or had she revealed something much colder, a disdain for those she believed beneath her? For Evelyn Lockhart, every headline, every meme, every trending hashtag was a reminder that her untouchable image had finally been pierced. But what do you think? Was Evelyn Lockhart's challenge just a joke? Or was it an insult? And when Marcus Hale sat at that piano, did he simply prove her wrong? Or did he prove something much bigger about talent, dignity, and the blindness of privilege? Let us know your thoughts below. As the story spread, journalists began digging into Marcus Hale's past. What they uncovered painted a portrait far richer than the viral clip suggested. Old friends spoke of a boy who had once dreamed of Juilliard, who whispered of Carnegie Hall, but whose family could never afford the lessons, the applications, or even the bus fare to auditions. His mother, a woman whose name few outside their neighborhood knew, had worked double shifts at the factory just to keep food on the table. And when she scraped together $50 for that battered church piano, it wasn't just an act of sacrifice. It was a declaration that her son's dreams mattered, even if the world refused to see him. Night after night, Marcus sat alone, teaching himself pieces by ear, stumbling at first, then growing sharper, stronger, until his playing filled the small house like a promise. That promise had carried him into the ballroom, though no one there knew it. Now, with the world watching, Marcus Hale stood at the edge of a life he had never sought. Invitations arrived from prestigious music schools. Charity foundations reached out, offering scholarships, residencies, opportunities to perform. Television producers called, hoping for an exclusive interview with the janitor who had humbled the Dallas elite. To many, it seemed like a fairy tale. But when reporters finally asked Marcus how he felt about fame, his response stunned them with its simplicity. Music was never about them, he said quietly. It was always about me and that piano. It was a statement that cut through the noise. To Marcus, the applause, the headlines, the viral fame, they were distractions. The only thing that had ever mattered was the music itself, the connection to something bigger than the world that had overlooked him. Evelyn Lockhart, meanwhile, watched the narrative slip further and further from her grasp. Accused of arrogance, mocked in headlines, she made a calculated move. She extended an invitation to Marcus Hale for a public meeting, cameras in tow, hoping to spin the moment into a gesture of reconciliation. The stage was set at a high-profile arts foundation, lights glaring, reporters waiting for sparks to fly. Yet when the two finally faced each other, the outcome wasn't what anyone expected. Evelyn, polished and rehearsed, offered a smile meant to soften her image. But Marcus, calm, humble, and composed, commanded the room without needing to perform. He did not gloat. He did not mock her in return. Instead, he carried himself with the same quiet dignity that had guided him from the first note. And in that moment, it became clear to everyone watching. Evelyn Lockhart had once controlled the spotlight. But now, the spotlight answered to Marcus Hale. As the weeks passed, Marcus Hale was confronted with choices most people only dream of. Agents called, offering lucrative contracts. Record labels dangled multi-million-dollar deals, promising him world tours and fame on a global stage. Universities reached out with honorary degrees, and wealthy patrons hinted at sponsorships that would secure him a life of comfort. But to the shock of many, Marcus declined almost every offer. He accepted no record contract, signed no book deal, and turned down television specials that would have paid him more than a lifetime of janitorial work. His explanation was disarmingly simple. I won't let them use me the way they laughed at me. My music was never theirs to sell. In a society that measured worth in wealth and headlines, Marcus chose something far rarer: authenticity. His refusal to be exploited became the very thing that elevated him higher than any contract ever could. Evelyn Lockhart, on the other hand, found herself in unfamiliar territory. For the first time in decades, her polished control over the narrative was gone. The woman who had once manipulated headlines now watched helplessly as every outlet, every trending tag, every whispered conversation painted her not as the dazzling socialite, but as the woman who had underestimated Marcus Hale. The glimmering armor of her reputation cracked, and beneath it, for the first time, people glimpsed her vulnerability. No gala, no magazine spread, no carefully staged charity event could erase the viral footage of her smirk or the sound of a janitor's hands outshining her arrogance. Evelyn's downfall was not dramatic, not immediate, but it was undeniable, a slow unraveling of the myth she had built around herself. And so, the story of Evelyn Lockhart and Marcus Hale became more than just a viral moment. It became a parable. In a world obsessed with wealth, status, and appearances, the night was not stolen by money or power or influence. It was stolen by a janitor, a man nobody noticed until he played. For some, Marcus became a symbol of hidden genius, a reminder that greatness does not ask for permission to exist. For others, he was a rebuke, a mirror reflecting just how blind society can be to those who live in the margins. Whatever the interpretation, one truth was undeniable. Evelyn Lockhart had sought to remind everyone of her power, but instead, she reminded them of something far greater: that dignity, humility, and authenticity can command more respect than all the riches in the world. So what do you think? Was Evelyn Lockhart truly humbled that night, stripped of the control she so carefully built her life upon? Or was this just another headline for her to manipulate? Another chapter in the endless performance of wealth and power? And then there is Marcus Hale standing at the center of it all, a janitor turned symbol of dignity and resilience. If you were in his shoes that night, staring down a room full of billionaires who had mocked you, what would you have done? Would you have played that piano with the same calm grace, or would you have walked away, refusing to be their entertainment? Tell us in the comments below. We read every word, and your voice matters in stories like this. And if you thought this was unbelievable, wait until you hear the story of the billionaire who left his safe open and tested his maid in ways nobody expected. The twist in that tale will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about loyalty and trust. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you won't want to miss what comes next.